content right there.
So viewers, if you're just now tuning in, would you
we have a dilemma for you.
Would you rather, if I were to grant you a magical pet, would you rather have 100 friendly bumblebees that sometimes bring you small trinkets, or one magical flying unicorn that can talk, but it's a huge asshole. It's super rude.
Let us know at patreon.com/Cinematary.
Yeah, if you want to let your voice be heard, please give us $5 a month in perpetuity.
Every Friday.
And just know that we don't care what your answer is.
I have a write-in answer, which is that I want a miniature meaning like 2 inches tall, George C. Scott playing General Turgidson. And so he's gonna have this gigantic superiority complex, really ridiculous, body language and disregard for human life. But he's so small that he can't do anything about it. And so it's really funny.
You said he's 3 feet?
No, 2 inches.
2 inches. Okay. Whew.
Yeah, 3 feet would be really weird. What if you had a George C. Scott who is the size of a small child?
Like the size of Jarvis.
Still proportioned like adult George C. Scott, just the size of a child.
Yeah.
Just trying to imagine.
No, but he's like the size of a large cockroach.
All right. On that note,
man, welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Happy Friday.
It's not Friday yet.
Oh.
It will be when they hear it.
Friday Eve.
That's true.
It will be when they hear this. Why does it say Audacity so big?
Why does this not? I think I have a microphone plugged in.
No. Hold on. Don't do it yet, guys.
Are you guys good?
We're working on it. I'm opening Audacity.
No.
Oh, there we go. We're good.
All right, we'll go Mo Malley and then Androgyes, which is something you contract on.
Yikes.
You have to deal with with pills.
That's quite a joke.
The pills? I'm very confused by that joke.
I just put your names together, Androgyes. But it sounds
something
like
you contract with the pills. What?
No.
It seems like an antidepressant or something. It seems like an antidepressant. Like, try Androgyes.
Man.
Just know what your intent was.
No, I feel like I did. I feel like I got it. It's like I think he's saying it's a venereal disease.
Okay. You contract it with pills?
He really
You don't contract venereal disease with pills.
No, I think he had
this
a fumble
joke was
of
not
words.
thought through.
I think he had a fumble of words. He just had a really clever idea and didn't execute it quite how it needed to.
Yeah, it was very clever.
We love you, Zach.
in 3.
It's roasted.
In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 378 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Michael O'Malley,
Andrew Swafford,
And Jessy Alva.
And in today's episode, we'll be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we'll continue our strong anti-war Patreon series, Happy Veterans Day.
Strong.
With 1964's Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Which is surprising that we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
Like, we're 7 years in?
Yeah.
Why have we not done an episode on this movie?
Well, I mean, I would have loved to, Dimitri, but I would have done it. I'm as invested in the episode as you are, Dimitri. I would love an episode.
I was too busy worrying about the American people.
Head over to before we start, head over to cinematary.com. We got some good reviews up. We're going to talk about one of the movies. New review of The French Dispatch, the latest Wes Anderson movie, is there.
Who wrote that review?
Zach.
I did. It's not my best episode.
Toot your own turn, Zach.
It wasn't my best effort. It's fine. It's on there though. But let's go ahead and jump in because I feel like we're gonna have a lot of thoughts for part 1 movies. Should be lots of thoughts. So let's go ahead and talk about the movie of the moment, the movie that everybody's talking about.
Wow.
If you're a teenager.
The French Dispatch?
Yeah, the teens love the French Dispatch.
No, we're going to talk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, we're gonna welcome to the podcast that's, branching out, exploring new horizons. We've been talking about TV shows every now and then the last couple months. Now we're talking about a long Taylor Swift music video. Michael, do you want to introduce this? Do you want me to introduce this?
Wait, did you?
You're my Swiftie in crime here.
I can introduce this. So, as people are probably aware, because no one, including myself, is shutting up about this. Taylor Swift is re-recording all of her music because of really nefarious schemes at her old label. She had lost ownership of her master tapes of all of her original albums up through Reputation, I believe. And so the second of these albums that she's released that she's re-recording with her own ownership of the masters is Red, which is her fourth album.
That's right.
From 2012. And in Red, there's an album track that has become a real fan favorite. It was never released as a single and reportedly has surprised Taylor Swift with how much fans have latched onto it. But it's a song called All Too Well, which on the original album exists as about 5 minutes long, but has long been legend of the Swifties.
It was already her longest song by a lot.
No, there's a song. So sorry, but actually, there's a song called Dear John on Speak Now that I think is 7 minutes or something.
Oh shit! I did not know that.
There's a longer song on Speak Now, but anyway, I
believe there's Taylor Swift lore here,
dude. You have no idea how much Taylor Swift lore there is.
It's insane. You two are the ones who know it.
This is very much if we're going with Taylor Swift, Iceberg or whatever. This is upper level.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into the crypto numerology shit yet.
But
there are layers to this.
Do you guys understand how insane these men are?
Anyway,
you guys listening? Do you see this?
As legend tells, that,
as foretold in the prophecy,
when Taylor Swift broke up with Jake Gyllenhaal, who I think it's worth mentioning, she only dated for a couple months. Which I think
3 months.
Is worth contextualizing given what comes out of it.
Yeah.
She dates Jake Gyllenhaal for a couple months, and then when they break up, she writes a breakup song and was apparently just in a fugue state and wrote a song that would have been 10 minutes long had she recorded it.
I don't know if I buy the fact that all the lyrics from the new 10-minute version were the original lyrics that she wrote.
I think that's probably unlikely as well. But anyway, legend as told by the legends, she and a co-writer whittled the song down to a more manageable 5 minutes, and it really took off with fans. It's a great song. I think it's probably her best song. It's definitely one of her best songs, and.
That is a pretty consensus pick, though. People who like Taylor Swift, almost. I feel like I hear this song mentioned as her best more than any other. Yeah,
it's a super fan fave, and it's also a very writerly song. So you have a bunch of journalists who really like it. Rolling Stone magazine, like Gary Sheffield or someone like that did a countdown of the top Taylor Swift songs a couple years ago, and he put this song at the top. And I think it's really good. But anyway. Because this song has become so popular, it's become a real holy grail of fans to hear what was the original quote unquote 10-minute version like. And so Taylor Swift, as she's re-recording these songs, she's also releasing songs from the vault, is what she's calling them.
Question actually about this: the From the Vault songs, she's not proposing any of them are like old recordings, right? Like she's recording songs that she never actually recorded for the
right. So
record,
like for instance, on this Red, one of the From the Vault songs is called Better Man, which she wrote for another country group. And we're now finally hearing like her perform that song as opposed to the country group that was successful with this song. But anyway, one of the From the Vault albums, or not albums, tracks is All Too Well in its supposedly original 10-minute glory. If you hear children screaming in the background, that's
like completely normal.
Resisting going to bed, and you should send good vibes and prayers to Rebecca, my wife, who's trying to put them to bed.
Well, I talk about Taylor Swift's 10.
Sounds pretty problematic to me. I think Taylor Swift needs to write a song about this and drag you for all eternity.
Come help me. And you're like, no, I got to talk about Taylor Swift.
So anyway, all of this is preamble to the actual thing that we're talking about, which is that alongside this 10-minute song is a 10-minute or 14-minute, right? 15-minute short film that is kind of in the style of like Michael Jackson's Thriller or something, where they take a song and then nest in like narrative elements that don't have the song with it. And so it's more or less a music video, but expanded to have like a complete narrative. And it features the girl that I can't remember from the 1970s Fear Street movie.
Sadie Sink is her name.
Yeah. And I don't remember what the guy's name is. He's super forgettable.
His name is Dylan O'Brien. I do not know this man.
Well, I don't know this man either, except that he basically represents Jake Gyllenhaal at his douchiest, which the 10-minute song really lays into Jake Gyllenhaal. Things like he missed her 21st birthday party, and like just really, I would not want to be Jake Gyllenhaal having things said about me, because if they're true, they paint me. They expose what I hope are some of what I would imagine are some of his like things he's not super proud of. And if it's not true, then he's having like millions of Taylor Swift fans just harass.
But also the thing is like he's not being accused of anything like criminal or abusive. He's just being accused of being kind of an inconsiderate boyfriend. Right. And like because the internet is what it is, and because like Taylor Swift fandom is what it is, like that equates to basically being an abusive boyfriend. Like, oh wow, you didn't come to my birthday party. Jake Gyllenhaal canceled. I feel like I have seen this like terminology thrown around like sincerely constantly over the last couple of weeks.
Not being on Twitter, I think I've missed all of that, but he definitely comes across as a bad boyfriend. And I think that the song does an incredibly effective job at not only painting him as a bad boyfriend, but also painting him specifically as Jake Gyllenhaal. Like the original song has some clues, but this one like really, really nails him. Which again, I think it's very funny to imagine dating someone for 2 months and then like 10 years later, you are still releasing just dirt on this guy. But all that said, Andrew, what did you think about the video? I'm going to quickly step out to see about my children. You can talk about the video.
Okay, sure. I will try to riff on my own about this video for a minute. I thought it was I'm of two minds about it. I thought that it was very visually impressive. I know the like Taylor Swift, her whole kind of like, I don't know, very cottagecore aesthetic has sort of been riffed on endlessly by like Bo Burnham in the White Woman's Instagram song that came out last year. But I think that like it can be really evocative, and she captures a certain like autumnal vibe in this video perfectly. And also like it does a really good job of like showing these like brief glimpses at a relationship. It's not like the video is telling a story about a relationship like with a plot line or anything like that. It's like you're just getting these fleeting glances at the mundane moments of a relationship, and like the way in which all those moments kind of culminate into the romantic feelings that these two people have for each other. And the editing is really like free associative and beautiful and kind of like almost Terrence Malick-y at times, in the way that it's just kind of like stitching together all of these disparate moments. And so it's like really beautiful to look at. And I also thought that Sadie Sink does an incredible job at playing like a fictional younger version of Taylor Swift in a way that's like really sympathetic but also like not as uncomplicated as I think the fan response has led you to believe. Like the thing that I hear about this song is that like it's kind of about Taylor Swift being I don't know, like being taken advantage of, or in some way like victimized by Jake Gyllenhaal, who's this monster. And the song is like, it definitely like does not make him look good, but it's much more complicated and honest depiction of like the push and pull of a relationship that has fallen apart, and like the extent to which like she feels a little bit of blame too. And it's like this weird, complicated, naughty feeling of like mourning this thing that she was like so attached to, but like couldn't have anymore. But like, I think Sadie Sink like treads that line really well of making it really, I don't know, like you sympathize with her a lot, but it also feels like very human and grounded too.
I think I'm back, by the way.
Yeah, welcome back.
You may have already mentioned this, so I'm sorry if you did, but I think one interesting thing that's complicated in the song, in the new version of the song, because the new version has lyrics that emphasize the age difference between the two, that were not present in the original. And then this movie, I think, does a good job of doing is the complicated nature of like what that age difference is, which at the time Taylor Swift was in her early 20s and Jake Gyllenhaal was in his late 20s, which I don't think was like a scandalous age difference.
No,
but it was also enough of an age difference that
especially for somebody who's like been in Hollywood for as long as he has, right? Like he has a certain level of power just because of like the way he can move about that world, compared to her, who like just kind of became a celebrity, right?
Right. But I also think that even like were they not celebrities, like the song presents something interesting, and the movie also presents something interesting, which is that like the little like the differences in what it means for a person, like what a relationship is for a person at different ages. So like in the movie, the thing that kind of precipitates a big fight is more or less that the Jake Gyllenhaal character is around old friends and doesn't pay attention to her very much, which is probably very like feels very dismissive to be in that position of your boyfriend is with people that you don't know, but they know. And I think that that's one thing, like when you're around people who are much older than you, sometimes you run into situations in which they simply have more life behind them and can connect with people on that life. Whereas you kind of have those moments that they're already connected over still ahead of you. Right. And I think it's not so much that or at least I didn't get the impression that like, wow, this guy is such a douchebag that he would ignore his girlfriend. It's like an age difference like that not necessitates, but like kind of precipitates those sorts of interactions. And I think the movie itself does a really good job in like the narrative sections of showing how something like relatively benign like that can reveal these kind of chasms in the relationship and chasms in not just power dynamics, but like what it means to have had like more light, like more of a 8 or 9 years more of life than another person. But
also like the slight that happens there when he's paying more attention to his friends than her, or she tries to grab his hand and he kind of like brushes it aside, feels like such a small, minute thing to lose an entire relationship over, right? And there's like a sense of mourning in the song or in the video that like there's like all of these moments they have together that are positive, like before and after the hand thing, but like that was kind of like just one little fault line in the larger relationship. Like it's a very, I don't know, I guess like one thing that people like about the song is like how small and human it feels. Like she left the scarf at his house, and like for some reason that feels like that symbol feels like so ordinary and mundane and like recognizable to people. I think there's a quality of that to like the way the relationship falls apart in the music video specifically.
One thing you would read, if you go back and read old reviews of Taylor Swift stuff, from like when she was kind of a rising star in country and then like kind of crossing over into pop, is that one thing critics tended to like about her was like what they called like the specificity of her songwriting.
Yeah, exactly.
Where a lot of the songs are essentially like, if you kind of boiled the song down to its themes and tropes, are not that unfamiliar, but the way that she writes about them, like, gives them a sense of personality and a sense of intimacy that you might not see from other songwriters. And I think one of the reasons why this song, and that something that this movie does really well of like personifying, is the way in which like it is this huge pileup of really specific moments. Like there's a lyric about like dancing in the refrigerator light, which is like very like this kind of very romantic and swooning thing, but it's also very like the image is so specific and something that you've never heard before, even though you can immediately recognize like what they're doing just with that line. And I think the movie, like the movie does a good job of showing a relationship that is a accumulation of those sorts of small moments, rather than making it this like sweeping thing. Because some Taylor Swift's music videos do go for a really sweeping archetypal thing, like her like love story music video is literally like her running around in like a wedding dress and like, you know, things like that. And this one is not that. It's very small scale.
Cinematary fun fact. I think other topics just start in 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think we've said most of the things that we need to say about this. I've mostly just talked about the positive things. I think Jessy is losing her mind about how much I can talk about Taylor Swift.
Just dude.
By the way, I would like for a little bit for context to people listening to this podcast. I am currently teaching Taylor Swift to my students at the moment. So like
what you would call a Taylor Swift academic.
If you want to know like how deep this rabbit hole goes, it goes deeper. Anyways, I think the song and music video are objectively really good. I think the 10-minute version is even better than the original version. I think that the narrative that is spun up around it is like a little uncomfortable to me. And I think there is something like tacked on to the end of the music video that feels like it affirms that narrative in a way that I'm not super comfortable with. But like in terms of like the music and the filmmaking and stuff, I and the acting, I really, really like this. Jessy's losing her mind.
We should put timestamps at the beginning so everyone who doesn't give a shit about Taylor Swift can just...
Which is plenty of people, yeah.
Yeah, I can say no ill will against anybody who likes Taylor Swift or Taylor Swift herself, but I find her to be such a deeply, deeply uninteresting person.
Oh, God.
I think she's very interesting.
Hurts my heart is that.
I think she's interesting. Her music's fine. That's it. Like that. It's just, I think there's some songs I've liked. There's some songs I haven't liked. I wouldn't call myself a fan. I wouldn't call myself a hater. I exist very neutrally and I support, all of her future endeavors. And
Jessy thinks she's hot.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
I mean, it's good for her. She can write songs and she's had relationships.
Yeah.
People,
me too.
Thousands of people have done that. Yeah, it's
Where are your songs, Jessy?
They're over there.
They're over. Yeah. All right.
Anyways, let's talk about other things.
So where's All Too? Where can you watch All Too Well?
Yeah, you can watch on YouTube.
All right.
It's 10 minutes.
It's 15 minutes.
Okay, you talked about it longer than it is.
We probably did. You could lay this over as a commentary track to the film. I think that was almost exactly 15 minutes.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, if you want to watch All Too Well, it's on YouTube.
I think we should release that. We might get DMCA'd if we did that.
Oh, for sure. By Taylor? Yeah.
We might get DMCA by the person who made a whole album because she didn't.
But I mean, like, fair use. You're remixing it. You're doing something.
She's also a fucking millionaire. Shut the fuck up, Taylor Swift.
He's shut down blogs and stuff like that for doing that.
Oh, they stole
like,
my
really?
songs.
Yeah. She's still a big old pop star after all.
I do think artists should own their work. Full stop.
Sure. Yeah. All right.
So, well,
I'm gonna
folks,
cry big tears for the millionaire.
What's next, Zacharoo? Zacharoni?
We're gonna talk about the French Dispatch.
All right.
Let's do it.
It's the French Dispatch discourse.
Switching gears.
I think we're 50-50 on our feelings on this movie.
Yeah,
we are. Who's gonna introduce this movie? Zach talked about it last week. Jessy, you want to introduce it? Start with the negative.
Oh boy,
perspective.
French Dispatch, 2021 film, directed by Wes Anderson. Stars
Pride of Texas.
Stars a billion people.
Like everyone. You always use such big numbers to describe what?
That's not that much of an exaggeration. This is a huge cast.
Yeah.
It really
what
is.
Is this called? The French Dispatch. Yeah,
this
so
is really good podcasting.
Yeah. So starring Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Lea Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothy Chalamet,
Those
Bill
are the big
Murray,
ones. Bill Murray,
Owen Wilson, Adash, Edward Norton, Willem Dafoe, Saoirse Ronan for a second, Christoph
Jesus.
Waltz, if you will.
Henry Winkler's in this movie.
Sure, I don't know him.
Bob Balaban.
I forgot he was in this movie.
Griffin Dunn from After Hours in this movie, and I never even noticed him.
Yeah, so just like pretty much anybody you could think of is in this movie.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, I will just say, so the movie is about a newspaper that's
Magazine.
Something about Kansas, but also it's in France, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an expatriated
Kansan. That's about as much as I understood that. So they're from Kansas, but they work in France, in Ennui, France, and it's like this crew of this newspaper.
I don't think Ennui, France is a real place.
Well, it is in the movie, so whatever. And so
it is a real place?
Their editor-in-chief.
Paris.
Can I just
another name.
Who cares?
Okay. I was confused by
that. In the
Go ahead.
world of the movie, it's Ennui. And Bill Murray plays the editor-in-chief of this magazine, and he dies. And in the wake of his death, gosh, why don't I explain this to you guys? You can figure it out. You can go watch the movie. In the wake of his death, his crew is trying to put...
I will actually say, though, this movie is very narratively dense, and they might not... It's worth,
It took quite a minute. It took a while for me to
I don't think we really talked much about the specifics of the plot when Zach talked about it last week, because he was trying to keep us spoiler-free.
Yeah, so the newspaper crew, in the wake of his death, are trying to put together like one final, like the best hits, and so the movie is structured like as a replaying of these best hits.
It's like you're reading the magazine cover.
Yeah. So it plays almost like episodically, and you're getting all these little glimpses, like the politics section of a magazine and an art section of a magazine, and what's the other section?
Culinary.
Yeah. And so it's a really interesting like method of storytelling, I think. But I just didn't like it. I don't know. I thought it was just such a creative, clever, fun way to do the story. But I guess I found all the stories just kind of boring and irritating.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Wes Anderson, I think, has a fun, very, very unique style. Mm-hmm. We see it
refined to a diamond.
We see it. We know it. It looks cool.
Yeah.
And the way he writes dialogue has his very own unique voice. But I think after you've kind of done that thing a few times, I get it. I don't know.
It seems like it has become, and then Zach, you said last time, like, if you like Wes Anderson movies, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Don't complain that it's a Wes Anderson movie. If you don't like Wes Anderson movies, you won't like it. I do like Wes Anderson movies. There are a lot of Wes Anderson movies I really, really like. And so I like his shtick, right? But this feels like it's more shtick than movie to me. Like, I felt like the shtick was being used to like present characters and stories that I cared about on some level, or like that seems to fit the shtick in one way or another. Like Gustav H. in Grand Budapest Hotel, like he lives that shtick. Like the Wes Anderson aesthetic is like an outgrowth of like that character's prim and properness, right? And in this movie, it just feels like it's just Wes Anderson kind of like doing a Wes Anderson impression over these stories that are like almost completely meaningless. I don't know. Like, I didn't care about the characters. And there was nothing that felt profound about them. It was like all gags, but not all the gags were funny. And like, it is really impressive. Like, there are some of his most impressive like cinema moments. Like, I really like how he stages action scenes like in this freeze frame where like every character is like just holding a pose and he's moving the camera around them. It's like really, really cool. I also really like the
mannequin challenge.
Yeah, the mannequin challenge Wes Anderson movie. Yeah. I also really like the 2D animation sequence, and I was like, man, I want to see a whole 2D animated feature by Wes Anderson. Why do I not have that? So like I was wowed by it on several levels.
It was just
but
each
like
of the stories to me. Yeah, all of the stories to me individually were just kind of irritating. Like I don't know. I found the characters just kind of annoying, and I was waiting for them to be done, and the next one would come, and I didn't really like that one either. And
but that's like that's what it's like to read the New Yorker. So he got it right.
Yeah, I mean maybe that is the thing, and maybe I don't want to watch this movie for the same reasons I don't want to read the New Yorker. I don't know.
It was great, but I just didn't like it. I don't know how to explain it.
That's the New Yorker. That's their slogan. It's great, but I don't like it.
I don't know. How far off base are we all?
Apparently.
I think I agree with everything you guys are saying, except when it comes to the individual stories. Like, to me, I loved those stories. Those little stories about, I don't know, and because they're layered. So, like, the stories are not only telling stories, but they're also telling the story of the author who wrote the stories as well.
Right.
And some of them, I will say, like, some of them are better than others, but I thought all of them were good on some level. The one I liked the least was the one with like Frances McDormand and Timothy Chalamet. Not for like
so
the
lost in that one.
Not for like the boring political reasons that people kind of dislike that when they're, you know, whatever, like Neil deGrasse Tysoning leftist politics. But I just thought it was a story that kind of felt removed, and like because the author herself is removed from it. She's kind of like at a distance, like looking at this like student uprising. And
I also hated, by the way, thinking about Frances McDormand and Timothy Chalamet having sex.
Yeah, that
just
was
like
thing that was
real weird to me.
Why'd you do that?
So, but I did like things. I did like things about that short, but like the other sequences, I thought like all did a really great job of presenting like basically like a journalism story that I was interested in learning more about, but then two, layering on top of that, like how it reveals what like the writer, like the personality of the writer. Like a really great example is the final story, which is written
It's James
by
Baldwin.
It's basically James Baldwin tribute.
I kind of hated the depiction of James Baldwin in this, though. I don't know, like he can't. It seems like they were making him feel pretentious, or something like that. I don't know. Like, I always, when I listen to James Baldwin speak, he always sounds like very sharp and cutting and like profound. And this guy just seemed like he was just spouting fluff, you know? Like, I don't know. It was weird to me.
I don't think that I don't know. Like, I think the thing that I'm most disagreeing with is I don't feel like the stories are meaningless fluff. Like, I think that these are stories that are really kind of poignant and engaging. Like, for example, like this is a story in which he goes to cover this like famous cook. And in doing that, he becomes like involved in a hostage situation with the police. And it's all kind of like quirky and whimsical because this is a Wes Anderson movie, but also like it's informed by his feelings as like a person of color abroad. It's informed by like his feelings of displacement, and that's the connection he makes with the cook.
They also make reference to the fact that like he was gay and like persecuted for that, but like in such a cowardly way. Like he just kind of like implies in one scene that like I got in trouble for who I loved, but like they're gonna like not show, like I'm not gonna actually commit to saying that out loud or not show him with another man. Like I don't know, that was just weird to me, like how that was sidelined so much if they are trying to make that one of the points.
I don't want to give Wes Anderson too much credit, but like it
felt like Disney's exclusively gay moment, you know.
In James Baldwin's own like actual like journalism, like if he were on the Dick Cavett show, like he's basically on in this movie, he wouldn't be openly talking about him being gay, which is
that's true.
That's the framing of this, is that he's on like a kind of talk show and he's reciting his piece, and as he's reciting his piece, we're watching it play out. But anyway, like I think that's a good example of how the story itself is an interesting story, and it's layered on top of what I found to be like a kind of interesting like exploration of like who the writer is. And there's other examples too. There's the modern art piece that's earlier on that's like, I think, like a really interesting story in its own about this prisoner who creates art in prison, and then these like art collectors essentially like astroturf a like movement around him to make like artificially inflate the prices of his art. And
that was my favorite story.
He becomes tired of being exploited and kind of like screws them over, and like I don't know, it's like a really interesting power dynamic in that also I think again like is like telling things about like the author who wrote it, whose feelings about like his position within like a broader publication that is like a for-profit publication, et cetera, et cetera. Like, so I don't know, like I think you guys are accurate in describing like what the movie is, and ultimately your make or break feelings are going to be, do you like Wes Anderson's style, and do you like, can you find like those emotional nuggets that will make the stories meaningful for you? And I guess I did. Like I thought that they were all really engaging stories for the most part.
Man, Michael makes a good point.
I mean, if you didn't like it, then you didn't like. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of like intellectualize myself into like seeing what's good about it. But I'm just like, the experience of sitting and watching it was not an enjoyable one. At least
I was
on
like,
first
I
watch.
Smiling, like it genuinely like buoyed my mood, like watching that.
Man,
movie.
I wanted that. I went to the theater the day after listening to you talk about it, or to reading your Letterboxd review actually, and I was like, man, I wanna have a good time with Wes Anderson. That sounds really great. And then I sat down, and like the lady who gave me my ticket was like, oh, you're gonna have such a blast, it's so fun. And then I sat down, and it was not that.
I just couldn't sit still. Like I kept fidgeting around, thinking, like wondering when it was gonna be over. I felt like guilty about it. Just didn't grasp me. Didn't get me.
Zach, what do you think, Zach?
He loved it.
Well, if you would like to know my feelings, go to Cinematary.
Oh my god!
Are you gonna be like James Baldwin / whatever his actual character is in this movie, where you recite the piece and we can reenact?
I mean, I could just pull it up.
What's the first paragraph?
I did love the guy's voice acting there. Phenomenal.
Which guy? The James Baldwin guy?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So fun.
No, I don't really have too much to add. I think that it's definitely Wes Anderson. The thing that was interesting to me is that Wes Anderson kind of has like this almost kind of older style to the way he makes movies. Like there's something kind of throwback, vintage to the way he makes movies, which is very, at least in this respect, was very like I just responded to it really well. And that worked well with having a tribute to something like print journalism, which is also kind of this vintage throwback thing. Like, and he kind of had this fascination with just the tangible qualities of not just filmmaking, but also print journalism, because you have, there was just such this bloated excess. There was with like that industry, and you could afford to have all of these, insane personalities who were just kind of doing stuff and like really imposing their personalities onto it, because you had a bunch of money, you could throw it at them and it didn't really matter. You didn't have to like worry about anything else. And so like, it was kind of nice to like be able to see a tribute to that, but at the same time, like there is a sadness to it, because it's also something that is gone and never coming back. So
and I also like love print journalism and think that is so sad. Like the current state of like the media landscape is like a huge fucking bummer. And so I want this to be that beautiful tribute to print journalism, or like this nostalgic look at least a better system than what we have now. But I just can't champion the movie as much as I would like to. I don't know. I feel bad about it. I want to like it.
That's, I hear that response every day in my job. Yeah. The big issue is that Disney has just kind of sidelined the movie because it's Disney. So fuck.
Oh, I forgot that he gets distributed from like Fox Searchlight, right?
Wait, in what way is it sidelined?
It just kind of doesn't seem to be getting like the.
They didn't get
overall
any
play.
marketing, really.
It didn't really get the marketing. I mean, I think people like Wes Anderson movies. It got better marketing than like The Last Duel, but
Isle of Dogs got a shit ton of marketing.
yeah.
Do you remember seeing that trailer a billion times for like a year?
I do remember that trailer a billion times.
Isle of Dogs and Grand Budapest got big marketing.
Yeah.
Were those both under Fox?
Fox Searchlight, yeah.
But that was probably, was it pre-Disney acquisition?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
This is the first. This
Was
post.
Searchlight, not Fox Searchlight. I noticed that when
yeah.
when it came on.
I wonder if he'll. I would assume he won't stay there. He'll go.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine if Wes Anderson starts making movies for A24?
You know, that's probably where he'll go.
The internet film discourse will
it will
itself
spontaneously combust. Yeah.
All right, Michael. Let's. We got a little time left. Why don't you? Well, we're at 40 minutes. I think you're going to have to keep your communism for another time.
Dang. I was going to be really amused by us talking the longest amount of time about the shortest movie, just a little bit of time about the longer movie, and then like me having like 2 minutes to talk about a 6-hour movie. But
yeah, no, it's
sure. There's not much to say.
Yeah,
no, not at all.
I'm sorry. I mean, you just should have tightened up the Taylor Swift section. That's all I can say.
I have no regrets.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back talking about Doctor Strangelove after this.
Oh, we didn't even get the 6-hour movie?
No.
I thought we were at least going to give it a tiny bit of time.
Nope, that cut it off.
That's fine.
I made we're at
people can just wonder about what communist movie I watched.
Did you say it was a communist movie?
Yeah. You better be careful. Yeah. They can fire you in the state of Tennessee for that guy.
He didn't say that he liked it.
I have to be a member of the party to be fired.
Oh.
Well, what about being a member of DSA?
No, because that's not a communist party. The communists would
Democrats in it. So,
well, is there a communist party in America?
Yeah, CPUSA.
Oh wow. Well, I guess I know not to join it, even if I agree.
It has it's tiny.
Oh,
but,
I didn't say that.
It's a lot bigger, and then it split off. Like when the new left in the 1960s, like it split. And I don't remember what that other party became, but anyway, it's still around, but it has members in the thousands.
It was a like a split over opinions on Russia, right?
I believe so.
Socialists condemned Soviet Russia and communists supported them.
I think something like that. It was under basically.
This is a real non-Crimean conversation. Love it.
I feel like this whole podcast I've just been staring here just listening to y'all talk.
Sorry,
smart.
We talked about Taylor Swift too long.
You're just smart. You're just smart people. I feel like I should really just leave and let y'all go.
Oh my god!
Degrees for something, if not analyzing Taylor Swift lyrics.
I used my degrees today from 7:30 to 3:15, and now
you're the feelings teacher.
Now it's Night Jess.
Night Jess doesn't know about feelings.
Night Jess just stares.
Was your bees versus unicorn thing the replacement for the LGBTQ 30 seconds?
Oh my god!
No, different school.
That didn't actually get
that hasn't happened yet. Oh my gosh! Though I will say, so I was doing this thing where we were all sitting in a circle and we were talking about. We were having a meeting together. It was really cute, very big kumbaya energy. That's kind of what I'm going for as a counselor. And I have this talking stick, and it's a rain stick, but on both sides of it has rainbow stripes, just red, all the rainbow on both sides of it. And then it's a wooden stick, and then on the very end it's black, but it's a rain stick. Okay. And I got it on purpose because I'm gay, but nobody knows that. So I was in class today, and one kid was looking at the stick, and she said, that looks a lot like a flag. And I was like, it does. And she's like, yeah, the pride flag. And I was like, it does look like the pride flag. Yeah, it does. She's like, I like that flag. And I was like, I do too. And I love rainbows. Anyway, and they just kind of kept going
that could have gone very differently.
Crazy that you noticed that. Whoa, what a coincidence.
Good for that student.
Yeah.
She's
What an ally.
a teacher's kid too, so
that kid went home and was like, "Yeah, my gay teacher." We had a real moment today.
A lot of times too, when kids will talk to me, and I'll talk about, and they come out to me. Sometimes I'll use like the we pronoun, like, yeah, it could be tough for us, or like we, or I'll talk about,
It'd be tough for we.
I don't know how. I'm trying to think of a good example of what I mean. Like,
we.
I don't know. We face a lot of instances where people try to, I'll say stuff like that and just kind of see if they catch on. But then, anyway.
No,
kids aren't that smart.
Yeah, they're children.
Yeah, they're children. They picked bees. What do they know? They're all like bees because they're nice.
Yeah.
But then or some of them were boys, and they'd be like, "Well, I picked bees because I'm a boy." And I'd be like,
"Sounds pretty badass to have a posse of bees following me."
Dude, so I will say I didn't get the whole when I was growing up that unicorns were girly thing because my first interaction with unicorns was in the Chronicles of Narnia in the last book where the unicorn like stabs people with its horns, and so I always thought it was like this vicious creature. And then like whenever sometime in middle school, it kind of dawned on me. It was like, oh, people think this is like a girly.
Like animal. what's the thing in Dante's Inferno that's like a lion with like a scorpion tail?
Ugh.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what that's called.
I forget what it's called.
A yucky boy.
Yeah, but like from a different perspective, unicorns are basically that.
Yeah.
But then the few kids who did pick unicorn, they were like, well, I could teach it to be nice. And I'm like, sure you could, Jan. Sure you could.
Restorative learning at play.
They're so cute.
Right there.
They're so cute. Kids are so pure. I love them.
All right, part two.
I just got a text from my dad about it's a video about like a church in his neighborhood that's like made the national news for QAnon shit.
Neat,
he says.
This movie hits different after QAnon, by the way.
Does he still live in the Nashville area?
Mount Juliet, yeah.
Mount Juliet, yeah. Cool.
On that note.
Yep. Let's do it.
Here we go.
Wait. Hold on. I got to set up my Audacity.
Oh.
All right. I'm ready now.
In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 378 of Cinematary. In this part, we will be continuing our Patreon series of anti-war movies with 1964's Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Directed by Stanley Kubrick from a script by Kubrick, Terry Southern, and Peter George. The film stars Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Sterling Hayden, Slim Pickens, and Keenan Wynn. The film is about what could happen if the wrong person pushed the wrong button, and it played the situation for laughs. U.S. Air Force General Jack Ripper goes completely insane and sends his bomber wing to destroy the USSR. He thinks that the communists are conspiring to pollute the, quote, precious bodily fluids of the American people. According to articles in the LA Times and the New York Times, filmmaker Stanley Kubrick heeded a, quote, preconceived interest in the subject of the atomic bomb and had amassed a large collection of books, magazines, and newspaper clippings over several years. Although he felt the topic would be well suited for a motion picture, Kubrick had no clear ambitions to develop a project until Alistair Buchan, the director of the International Institute for Strategic Studies in the UK, recommended the 1958 novel 2 Hours of Doom, written by former Royal Air Force Lieutenant Peter George. Among the titles that Kubrick considered for the film were Dr. Doomsday, or How to Start World War III Without Even Trying, Doctor Strangelove's Secret Uses of Uranus, and Wonderful Bomb.
What if this movie was called The Secret Uses of Uranus?
Amazing.
That wouldn't have anything to do with this movie. This movie has very little to do with butts.
I mean, it has very little to do with Dr. Strangelove, too,
It does.
for most of it.
I think that's a weird name also.
According to a June 23rd, 1963 New York Times article, Kubrick hoped to take advantage of Sellers' comedic talents and signed him to play 4 roles, including the titular scientist, insisting he, quote, wanted all the parts to be played straight and still be funny.
Wait, I thought there was only 3. What's the 4th one?
Sellers was forced to relinquish his 4th and final role in the picture, Major T.J. King Kong due to a broken ankle, at which point he was replaced by Slim Pickens.
Makes sense.
Terry Southern's biographer, Lee Hill, said the part was originally written with John Wayne in mind, and that Wayne was offered the role after Sellers was injured, but he immediately turned it down.
Would be incredible if John Wayne was.
Gosh, if we get like a George C. Scott style like performance out of
Oh
John
God.
Wayne.
Or if he just played it completely straight, I think that would be even better.
Well, that's how they described it. Is Slim Pickens didn't really know much about the movie. They just like gave him the role, and he only knew about his parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And so he just played it like he would play it in like a Western. Like it was
great.
According to a May 2nd, 1963 LA Times article, Kubrick ordered 3,000 custard pies for the production, which were used in an alternate end sequence depicting a pie fight between the Russians and the Americans.
Oh my God.
In a 1969 interview published in Joseph Gelmas's The Film Director as Superstar, Kubrick explained that he removed the ending after a preview screening because the sudden farce was inconsistent with the rest of the movie. According to James Earl Jones, Kubrick tricked George C. Scott into playing the role of General Turgidson far more ridiculously than Scott was comfortable doing.
He did it.
Kubrick talked Scott into doing over-the-top practice takes, which Kubrick told Scott would never be used as a way to warm him up for real takes. Kubrick used these takes in the final film, causing Scott to swear never to work with him again. During the filming,
absolute king shit from Stanley Kubrick.
During the filming, Kubrick and Scott had different opinions regarding certain scenes, but they got comfortable. But Kubrick got Scott to conform largely by repeatedly beating him at chess, which they played frequently on set. Scott, a skilled player himself, later said that while he and Kubrick may not have seen eye to eye, he respected Kubrick immensely for his skill at chess.
Man.
It's really the real Queen's Gambit right there.
By the way, to go back to the pie thing, there is an old edition of the Blu-ray that I own a copy of that has the script of the pie scene in there. So it is findable somewhere. If you search hard enough for it, you can read the pie scene. It's fun.
They don't have you can't see it though?
Well, they didn't film it, I don't think.
They bought all those pies for nothing? What'd they do with them?
I think they did film.
They did film it?
They did film it. People didn't like it.
One of the reasons I also read is that the characters became indistinguishable from one another, and it was kind of like visually flat, according to Kubrick.
So do we know if there is like footage of this laying around somewhere? Because that would be like the find of the decade if somebody found it.
I'm sure it's somewhere because it played in the previews.
Oh my gosh.
Go find it, people.
How did Criterion not dig this up when they did their edition? Come on.
A first test screening of the film was scheduled for November 22nd, 1963, the day of the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh my God.
The film was just weeks from its scheduled premiere, but because of the assassination, the release was delayed until late January 1964, as it was felt that the public was in no mood for such a film any sooner. During post-production, one line by Slim Pickens, quote, "A fella could have a really good weekend in Dallas with all that stuff," was dubbed to change Dallas to Vegas. Since I assume you can figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
The original reference to Dallas survives, though, in the English audio of the French subtitled version of the film. In 1964,
they just forget that one.
Yeah, they just forget.
Hey, who cares? The French don't care.
Yeah, they don't care about John.
Wait. So there's an English audio for a French subtitle of the same film that's different from the English audio of the non-subtitle?
I think what he means is when they did the French, I think it was a dub, not a sub, right? Or maybe like if they watched it in English with French subtitles, the French subtitles say the original line.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
Or something.
So the Hollywood Reporter in 1964 says, "Baleful and brilliant, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, will outrage a predictable percentage of the population and enthrall an even greater percentage. Candid and Candidian, beneath its free-form burlesque of some of the most cherished contemporary cliches, Stanley Kubrick's creation makes visual the underlying anxiety that today stirs uneasily in most of the world's population. The Columbia release is concerned with that dread probability, an accident triggered by the bomb. It is so funny because it is so true. Variety 1964 said nothing would seem to be further apart than nuclear war and comedy, yet Kubrick's caper eloquently tackles a fail-safe subject with a light touch. While there are times when it hurts to laugh because somehow there is a feeling that the mad events in Strangelove could happen, it emerges as a most unusual combination of comedy and suspense. And the New York Times in 1964 said Stanley Kubrick's new film called Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, is beyond any question the most shattering sick joke I've ever come across. For this brazenly jesting speculation of what might happen within the Pentagon and within the most responsible council of the President of the United States if some maniac Air Force general should suddenly order a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union is at the same time one of the cleverest and most incisive satiric thrusts at the awkwardness and folly of the military that has ever been on the screen. My reaction to it is quite divided because there is so much about it that is grand, so much that is brilliant and amusing, and much that is grave and dangerous. So let's dig into this.
When you bomb the whole planet.
It is. So this one, I forgot to mention, this one comes from Susanna of the Mounties herself, Ron Hayes, our Patreon.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. We love you.
Thanks for blessing us with this movie instead of Grave of the fucking Fireplace.
Who did that? Who did that?
He had a child, guys. I mean, like, just Tyler, he's dealing with stuff right now. I don't want to tell you.
Did you check in, by the way? What's the report from Tyler Chandler?
I need to check. I need to ask him if he listened to the episode and he enjoyed it.
Okay.
Let's talk about Doctor Strangelove.
Can I share a Cinematary fun fact about Doctor Strangelove?
Ooh,
please do.
I think I know what the fun fact is.
So, Doctor Strangelove was the first movie that me and Andrew saw when we with the UT Cinema Club. I saw the UT Cinema Club at UT campus, and he and I had been talking about trying to see that because we'd been watching different Kubrick movies, and that's what drew us into Cinema Club. And so that's where we met, Dylan and all our Cinema Club friends. And honestly, I don't know. In my mind, like, there were a lot of screenings with Cinema Club that it was just Andrew and Dylan. And I kind of feel like if we hadn't gone, Cinema Club might have died, and Cinematary might have never existed.
Yeah, Zach was also at that screening, by the way.
At Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah, and we didn't know each other at the time.
We didn't know you then.
Years prior.
But I kind of sort of think that Dr. Strangelove, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Strangelove.
In conclusion.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Doctor. You might have destroyed the world, but you did bring us together. That's
what matters.
So.
It's like weathering with you. Who cares about
the world,
climate change if
the real
we can be together?
The friends we made along the way.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly. So to that I owe gratitude.
I don't reject friendship. I just deny them my essence.
Okay, so to actually get on topic, Jessy,
that was on topic.
I would like to start with you if we can, because you didn't really care for this movie very much when we saw it at Cinema Club years and years ago.
Well, I don't remember.
It seems like you really liked it rewatching it just today.
Well, so here's the thing that I also realized today. I don't remember feeling strongly about it the first time I watched it when we saw it at that fated day. But I think I know why, and that's because it's really hard to understand. I kept making you translate it, and then when you would explain it to me while we were watching it tonight, I was like, "Oh God, oh dear!" And just like each scene after you'd kind of explain it to me, I was like,
"Wait." So I'm curious. Did you pause with the opening shot to explain that it's a penis?
I
did say, "Is that a penis?"
Yeah.
I thought so. I saw it. Didn't need explanation there.
Right, I do think it's subtle, though. If someone had not explained it to me, I don't think I would have noticed what was going on in that shot.
So I first watched this, I think, in middle school with my dad. It was middle school or early high school with my dad, and my mind I remember immediately going there. When I was in middle school. I was like,
head in the gutter,
are these
Michael.
Planes having sex right now? And I remember thinking, I wonder if my dad knows this.
Man, he's probably never had sex.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh man.
Anyways, you liked the movie.
Oh, well, yeah, no, it's good. I liked it. Every scene draws out so slowly.
Yeah.
And it's just it really feels like a horror movie. You're just as all these characters, it's just funny to see their face kind of click with the realization of like panicked horror, like please say psych.
For as cartoony as this movie can be, this time watching it felt like they had like a real believable human psychology, like each one of these characters, right? Like these interactions have to play out at the speed of conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like people trying to like politely coax the other person to get them to do what they want. And like it's such an over the top situation, but like I can genuinely imagine it playing out similarly to the way that it does here on like a minute by minute basis.
Oh my gosh.
I think I saw someone, this was either a professional review or someone just on Letterboxd, but they were talking about how one of the things that makes this movie so funny, while at the same time also so horrifying, is that unlike a lot of satires, which are usually satiring like incompetence on some level, this is a movie in which everyone is so competent, and the competence is in and of itself like part of the thing that makes the nuclear war unavoidable. Like like the one person who acts irrationally is Jack D. Ripper,
but he only acts irrationally if like he acts consistent to his values, right? Like he genuinely believes all these things are true.
I guess what I'm saying is that like the whole like fluoridation is a communist plot to steal our essence. Like that is the most detached from reality any one person is in this movie. Whereas everyone else.
Well, the thing that's really detached about it is like he realizes it after having a weird empty feeling after sex one time. That's absurd.
The feeling of fatigue settled upon me.
Yeah. But like this movie hits different after QAnon because like there are people who believe really, really ridiculous things about like, you know,
the sun is fake, given to us by NASA.
God, our friends told us about somebody who told them the sun was fake, and like there are people who just believe these like most outrageous things, and many of them like just got elected to Congress. You know, like I can actually imagine, you know, the type of people who go into the military kind of being as far right as they often are, and how like conspiratorial the far right has gotten in the past several years. I can genuinely imagine a QAnoner with his finger on the button.
Well, I mean, the fluoridation being a communist plot is not made up. Like people actually believe.
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
That part is like 100% like something that people said. And I mean, like
the thing that's wacky though is like that a person who believes that wacky conspiracy theory being in that place of power. And I don't think that's wacky anymore. Like I think that could genuinely be the case.
You know, and I guess like, you know, I think about, I don't know, the concept of like terrorist attacks or shootings or things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I guess I feel sort of safe thinking I'm sort of in a random, not super important city. Like they're going to go for somewhere like DC or New York or whatever, like not Knoxville, probably not even Nashville. Like who cares about Tennessee? We're just sort of in the middle, you know, who cares? But so I don't like spend day to day really worrying too much about something like that happening or affecting anywhere close to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like it's also just sort of a weird feeling to think that could just be a handful of guys who could just end the world right now if they got pissed at each other and wanted to show off their dicks or something.
Well, that was like 100% like the foreign policy like for decades, which was that of mutually assured destruction, right?
Right.
Well, people were thinking about this too, like when Trump was like tweeting about how much bigger his rocket was than Kim Jong-un several years ago. Like we were real close. We were really close to being able to you know, entering into extremely violent military conflict over like a penis measuring contest, right?
But I think the thing that's like so fascinating about this movie is like, yes, like this is obviously like tied to like specifically like male like sexual like virility, but also like that is indistinguishable from the military-industrial complex. And also indistinguishable from like the professionalism of the military-industrial complex, right? Like the efficiency and the like dedication to duty and protocol and like the sheer like top to bottom, like we are following procedure, like we are
a well-oiled machine.
We're a well-oiled machine, like
Yeah.
that I think for some people, like, you know, people talk about Donald Trump, and the way I would see a lot of people talk about Donald Trump and still talk about Donald Trump, or, you know, QAnoners or whoever is, the thing that's terrifying to them about those people is that they are chaotic and break systems and whatever, which are certainly like not fun things that I enjoy either, but also like just because a system is rational and efficient and works well doesn't mean that it is actually something that cares about human life. And I mean, there's like that great quote that George C. Scott has where he's like talking about during a nuclear war, like if they take this particularly brutal stance toward the Soviet Union where they institute a first strike, which would have been like, you know, against foreign policy or whatever, but it is the rational thing to do given their circumstances. He said, if we do this, we could withstand acceptable civilian casualties between 10 and 20 million.
10 to 20 million tops.
Yeah, 10 to 20 million tops. We might get our hair mussed a little bit, but and so like all of that is like, if you're doing like a purely numbers, purely rational thing with like moving pieces around on the big board, right? Look at the big board, like that all makes sense. But ultimately, that makes no difference on like people's actual lives. You know, because everyone is acting completely rational when nuclear weapons and destruction of that scale is on the table. Rational systems trend toward like total annihilation rather than like peace. Which
peace is our practice or whatever.
Peace is our business. That's like it specifically says peace is our business, which is like satire on like 2 or 3 different levels. Which I think is great.
Yeah, I think like, you know, we've mostly focused on like how existentially horrifying and believable and like gross all of this is, and I think it's kind of a testament to the movie that it's funny enough to carry you through that. Like you're kind of buoyed over all of these like really dark like scenarios that you are being asked to consider by just how goddamn funny this movie is.
It is so like, funny. Like top 10 funniest movies of all time. Like
absolutely.
Dr. Strangelove is in there. Like every single scene. Like Jesse, you talked about how slowly the scenes unravel, and like I think that makes it funnier for me because it's like someone telling a joke and they're kind of like really doling out really intentionally each like individual piece of the joke, and it makes it funnier because there's like this sense of anticipation in the pauses, and like those scenes in the early goings of the movie between General Rip British character, I don't remember his name,
Mandrake.
The moment,
Mandrake.
God,
the fucking names in this movie. There's a guy whose name is Face Man, or is it Man Face? I forget. It's Face Man.
Read off
His
some
name
of
is
the
Merkin
ridiculous
Muffley.
Merkin Muffley. The name of
no. There's Captain Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, and also President. What was the president's name?
Merkin Muffley.
The base is called Burpleson Air Force.
Burpleson Air Force Base. Then there's General Buck Turgeson, Jack the Ripper, Colonel Bat Guano.
Yep.
If that
is your real name.
That is your real name.
Major King Kong. I don't even remember this one. Oh, the Russian guy.
The Russian ambassador. But he doesn't have a funny name.
name.
Though, like, Dr. Strangelove, he has a German accent. And George C. Scott's character is like, oh, he doesn't have a name like a kraut. And then they say his real name, and it's just like this 10-syllable long, like German gobbledygook. That's so fucking funny.
I think that's actually German for Strangelove. Like maybe
is it seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies to the country of Germany.
They've taken licks. It's okay.
That scene between Ripper and Mandrake is like those scenes early on before it like stuff really hits the fan.
Yes.
It is so funny. Like I just can't stop laughing in those scenes. Most of the movie I can't stop laughing, but like in those scenes it's so funny because Ripper is saying increasingly unhinged things, but they're like spaced out with these long pauses, and Mandrake is just like very British and kind of befuddled, and he's like, "Oh, you don't say," and like
But it is a very recognizable situation to be in, like talking to a coworker and like a superior, and they say something that's like a little bit weird, and then Jessy, I know you've had this experience of like talking to MAGA people at work and stuff like that, and you have to maintain this like weird air of politeness, and he also like he needs to get something from this guy, so he can't upset him. He has to butter him up.
Nuclear codes.
Right. So like the fate of the free world rests in the hands of like me being able to be polite in this weird situation. Like that's what I mean
just
about
absolute insane. Like he just slowly realizes, oh, he's fucking crazy, and he's about to like totally destroy the world.
My favorite part is when he's like sitting by him, and he's like, oh Jack, you remember I'm loading the gun and you're shooting the gun.
I was feeding you, Jack. I was feeding you. Oh my god! And when the like the other military forces who invade the military base come in, and the guy's like, we heard there was a bunch of preverts in here. You better not be doing anything preverted in that phone booth.
What's he gonna do with this phone booth? Like, what's right now?
You're gonna have to take that up with the Coca-Cola company.
Jessy, you called Ripper insane or crazy or whatever, but to quote George C. Scott, I'd like to hold off judgment until all the facts are in.
God, also seems like definitely a thing I can hear a politician saying.
Right.
Oh, and then the very next line, like the president is like freaking out. He's like, "Why do we even have this program? This seems insane," or whatever. And then he's like, "I think it's not very fair to judge the whole program based on one slip up."
Oh my god.
Well, then it's funny because the whole process of how Jack D. Ripper got to this point was something that the president signed off on and said, like, if we run into this situation, we have to go through this protocol where if somebody's attacking the base, they can start enacting these nuclear codes. And then like when George C. Scott is trying to explain to President Muffley that he signed off on the process to make this happen, also great.
Yes,
and
yes. Just like sweating bullets saying, so yeah, here's the situation. But my favorite is the president explaining to Dimitri.
The Russian, president.
The whole situation.
How do you think I feel about it, Dimitri?
You had a great impression of like that phone call.
Me?
Yeah.
What? When?
When you were like, hey girl. Like...
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. He calls this guy up and he's like, hey girl. Oh my gosh, been so long. Really should have. So sorry we didn't catch up sooner. So funny story. Oh my gosh, girl. Can't wait to catch up with you again. Also funny story. You know how we have those like teensy weensy little bombs? Isn't this hilarious? It's just sort of like so funny. You're not gonna believe this. So the bombs are, yeah, girl, I know. It's so crazy. I have the bombs, you have the bombs, like, and they're headed your way, but girl, listen. I know, girl, it sounds crazy. Just keep no! And like that's exactly what he's doing.
Oh my god. Because it's also a situation where like a good outcome kind of depends on a certain amount of like politeness and diplomacy, and it's just like such an over the top thing to be calling.
And nobody wants to take ownership of it, but nobody really can take ownership of it. But they're all trying to make themselves look good in the situation. Like this situation, and it's all fine though, right? No, it's not. Then they call somebody else up. Oh, this is a situation.
And you have nuclear bombs going to Russia, and like at the same time, George C. Scott's like, well, what if the Russian ambassador sees the big board? And you're like, who gives a shit?
You can see the big board. Oh my god. The scene where George C. Scott is like walking around and explaining stuff, and he falls over and just like does a fucking tuck and roll and like lands on his feet and has the facial expression intact is like some absolute god tier shit. I cannot believe it.
He was like step over, like he just steps over Chaplin, steps over Keaton.
Yeah, oh my god.
Like it's such an incredibly physical performance that he just like goes 110% for, and it blows my mind that he didn't like that performance. Like, how did he see that on screen and not think like, this is the best performance I'm ever gonna do in my life, because it is the best George C. Scott performance of like the dude's whole career.
I also love the little phone call when the secretary calls him and he's just like, of course, but of course. I deeply respect you as a human being.
I was going to make you Mrs. Turgidson.
I was going to make you Mrs. Buck
Don't
Turgidson.
you want to be Mrs. Buck Turgidson? And she's the only woman in the entire movie, by the way, which is hilarious, actually.
Do you think she's going to make it to the mine shaft?
Nobody's making to the mine shafts. They were still gabbing when the bombs went off.
Well, I don't think we have to, if we are necessarily to assume that.
I like to believe
there are time gaps in between scenes in this movie.
That's also such an amazing scene because it's such a long scene of them breaking down how the hierarchy of the mine shaft is going to be,
right?
And how many women they're going to have sex with, and how that'll work.
I want to, because you guys mentioned Doctor Strangelove earlier, and that's weird that the movie's named after him. And so, like, that was always weird to me because I've seen this movie probably like 6 or 7 times at this point. And this time it finally clicked with me, like, why the movie is named after him, because he plays such a minor role or whatever. But like, so like, I'm like, he's based on like Werner von Braun, right? Like, that's, you know, the Nazi rocketeer scientist. Or rocket scientists that the U.S. military ended up using in their space program and with nuclear missiles and whatever. And so I knew that, and I always assumed like, oh, this is just a joke on that. But that last scene really throws it into relief because what he's doing is essentially describing a eugenics program, like to get into the mines, and like it's basically making him involuntarily like have like a
he's getting a Nazi hard on.
He like can't suppress the Nazism because the nuclear war, like the military industrial complex, cannot avoid situations in which like you eventually have to judge the value of human life based on like quote unquote pragmatism. And again, like this is where like rationality within the context of like a nuclear weapons program has to eventually end with some sort of eugenics shit, because like how else do you like that situation which you have to decide who lives and who dies, like if humanity is going to be whittled down to a core nucleus, like the only like rational way to deal with that other than simply random chance, which is terrifying,
is contingency plans where we like decide in advance who gets to survive and who doesn't.
Right. And so like I think this time it really clicked with me, like, oh, the reason why this movie is named after him is like this is basically outlining like how Nazi propaganda wins, is because of the extreme fear created by chaotic and extremely destructive situations engineered by the military. People find comfort in, or at least powerful people find comfort in like the answer like far right fascism offers, because it takes rationality and kind of like justifies the horror in that way.
Would you consider Kubrick to be like a pretty like outspokenly anti-fascist filmmaker?
I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know very much about him as a person, but I mean,
I'm just like thinking about looking at the art.
I mean, I think he's anti-authoritarian. I don't know, like, you know, so like, like Paths of Glory is pretty fascist, right? Like, is set in like a world prior to like, the like fascism arises like out of world, like the after effects of World War I, and like Clockwork Orange is like, I don't think specifically fascist. The society that it produces, like, it's meant to like satirize like post-war Britain, and I don't know, like I guess it would be hard for me to.
I'm thinking of like Full Metal Jacket, which kind of like positions the American military as a fascist institution that is like, also like has weird parallels with like American mass media and stuff like that. And then also something like Eyes Wide Shut, where like he's kind of skewering like the upper class in America as like essentially a like faceless cabal that you know, like is going to like stop at nothing to reinforce its own power.
I guess it comes down to like, I mean, how specific are we? You know, do you want to name this?
Yeah, anti-fascism.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I mean, his movies are all really attuned to like systems of power and how those abuse people. And so if we consider like, you know, all systems of power to be, you know, all systems of like hierarchy to be like fascist at their core, then probably, I guess, yeah.
Just a passing thought. Sorry to distract from Strangelove.
It's all kind of looped in.
Yeah.
I was looking through like the popular Letterboxd reviews for Strangelove, and was kind of was interested to see like the not large but like a decent amount who just didn't get it.
Really?
It's hard. It's very hard to understand, I think.
What are the reviews that you're seeing saying, Zach?
I think a lot of the satire just doesn't. They don't understand like that they're landing these jokes in like a searing fashion. I think that they almost think that like they're like the joke. Not as
are they like expecting a different type of humor?
Yeah,
because it is like its own wavelength of humor for sure.
It is, and it's constantly like talking in a that's what Kubrick said. Like he wanted it to be said in like a very serious like manner, as if this was like a drama, but none of it is serious. You know,
like think about there are two scenes of just like them flipping a million switches on the airplane, and the joke is like, aren't airplanes complicated? But like it goes on just like stone faced for like 2 minutes each. And like that's a style of humor that I can see a lot of people not laughing out loud at, or even like maybe not getting that it's a joke. A lot of the stuff.
I remember, like I said, I saw this like first when I was a teenager sometime. I don't remember if it was middle school or high school, but whenever I saw it, I definitely didn't find the same things that I find like uproariously funny now funny.
Yeah.
But I remember what I latched onto, and the moment I realized that like I knew what to laugh at in the movie was like the precious bodily fluids, because there's so much of the movie that is so physical, and there's a lot of like body humor in the
George
movie.
C. Scott slapping his belly.
Right. Like there's a lot of that going on. And like I remember laughing really hard at the dude who like shoots the Coke machine and all the money comes out. Like there's like, as stone-faced as it is, like, and as much as like, you know, something like the pie scene reportedly didn't fit in the movie, there is a lot of like traditionally comedic beats. It's just presented in a really like unconventional way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I definitely can understand why people would be like taken off guard by this, but I also remember finding like lurid humor in it.
It feels to me also like a much more like buttoned up version of like Duck Soup, which Duck Soup's also working on the same level of just saying stuff that seems serious but like incredibly absurd. But there's there's a facade of like, this is not real. You know?
There's kind of like a looseness to it. Like we're, like you said, we're kind of accepting that we're not like operating in a real, like a believable reality. Like people would respond to Groucho differently in real life. But I feel like everything that happens here is done with like such like a bureaucratic seriousness that like, I don't know. I can completely suspend my disbelief as I'm watching this movie, and I can get invested in it as a drama, while it's also making me laugh a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it would.
Isn't the story that they were initially like attempting to make like a straightforward thriller and just couldn't? Like,
wow, I did not know that.
I think like on the screenwriting level, I don't think it got far enough.
Well, you have the whole thing where the movie failed. The Sidney Lumet film's Failsafe was supposed to come out around the same time, and Kubrick and Columbia sued them, you know, over you know, copy, or like saying that they were copying them, and they like delayed the release of Failsafe for about 8 months because it was too. Kubrick argued the plot was too similar to the book that Strangelove was based off of.
And the book it's based on is a drama, right? It's not a comedy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really, I mean, I just think that's a very interesting thing about Kubrick. I guess it gets brought up all the time when people talk about him, so I'm not really saying anything new here. But like the way that Kubrick adapts books and takes like such extreme liberties with them, like the idea of taking an imperfect story, like in Kubrick's perspective, and making it into a perfect story is just like a really interesting approach to adaptation. Like picking something that you intentionally know is like, this is not great, but I want to make it great. I want to fix it.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what Hitchcock would do too. I mean, like I think what is it? The book Psycho is not good. And stuff like he would do the same thing where he would be like this. It would almost be like this would be a better movie than it is a book. I think there was the same thing with that. Spielberg did the same thing with Jaws. Like the book Jaws is fine, but it's way better as like this visual product.
And also why like Lolita is probably one of the least successful Kubrick movies, because the book is like infinitely better. Like I cannot imagine a movie like adaptation of Lolita being as good as the book.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or any other lines that we haven't quoted from Strangelove? I just could live watching George C. Scott for 5-6 hours.
Oh my gosh. I do think his conversation with the president, again, I've already talked about like getting our hair mussed and 10-20 million civilian deaths tops. And then the president's like, I would go down in history as the greatest mass murderer since Adolf Hitler. And he's like, I think you better start thinking about the American people a lot more than about the history books. Like, it's just so, like,
God,
it's so freaking good.
I'm trying to think of other. Well, we haven't talked about him too much, but Slim Pickens is fucking fantastic in this movie because, like, he just. It's interesting that they wanted Peter Sellers to play that role because I don't know, I couldn't see it, but like the fact that he plays it so straight as if he was in like a Ford Western or some the roles that he was familiar with. So like I was reading when I was researching the notes that he literally had never left the country. So when he went to London to film this, that was the first time he ever left the country. And they thought when he showed up at the studio that he came in costume because he had like the cowboy hat on and everything. And that's just how Slim Pickens is. Loved him.
It is really a sublimely goofy moment when the movie starts and they're flying the plane and he's not wearing the cowboy hat, but then when they get the orders to go drop the bombs, he pulls that freaking
time to saddle
hat and puts it on.
Well, he goes in he goes in like the chest or the safe or whatever and pulls it out like it's there for the specific moment.
Also, I really like that, like the decisive moment in this movie, like the no turning back moment, because it's like that they're going to be safe because the president is like basically tells the Russians like, well, these are the two places that they can fly to. You just put all your aircraft power there, and you just shoot them down before they can do the bomb. And it looks like okay, disaster averted. And then you go back to the plane, and they're losing fuel at a higher rate than they thought they were going to, and so they're not even going to make it to their targets that the president has just told them. And so the crew's like, well, I guess that's it. And then Slim Pickens is just like, well, shoot, we came all this way and we're not going to blow anything up. And they go to like some third target that they
what can we blow up?
Like, I just think that's so good. And then of course you've got him riding the bomb down like a bull.
Yeah. One other unrelated element we haven't talked about that I want to acknowledge before we wrap up is the "We'll Meet Again" needle drop at the end, which I feel like I kind of understood it on more levels this time than I have in the past. Like it's always felt to me just as kind of like this ironic counterpoint. Like it's a very sweet, happy song playing over scenes of like utter annihilation, and also kind of like a waving bye to humanity or whatever. But like, there's also like a literal joke to it, which is that when they're planning their like eugenics commune, 1 man to every 10 women thing, they're starting an arms race with Russia because like they need to outbreed Russia so that when we come out,
a mine shaft gap.
Yeah, we can't have a mine shaft gap. And so like the "we'll meet again" is like, if America can do it, we are going to continue this like weird rivalry for fucking ever, even if it's like post-apocalypse. We are this committed to the bit. That was a fun realization this time. Any other?
I do want to end just by like how they describe the like the 10-to-1 thing where Dr. Strangelove is like a sacrifice required for the human race. I'm just reading
sacrificing monogamy.
Yeah, sacrificing monogamy because George C. Scott's like, now 10 men or 10 women to 1 man. Wouldn't this necessitate the abandonment of so-called monogamous sexual relationship, at least as far as men were concerned? And then
everybody's like, "Oh yes, it would be very bad if we did not."
Like, oh man, yeah, I guess
because men would be required to do prodigious service along these lines.
We would have to have sex with the most beautiful women science can find for us.
To be of a highly stimulating nature sexually.
Jesus. Jess, do you have anything else about Strangelove that you haven't brought up?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, not really. Other than, yeah, I think it's so good and so existentially terrifying. Like kind of along the lines of A Glitch in the Matrix that I watched. Was that this year?
That was this year. It was January.
God. Just when you think too much about it, it's a little. Gosh, just the scene, the like closing scene where what's his name? Strangelove stands up and he's like, I can stand, and then just sort of
I can walk my Führer.
I know. And then that just cuts off and then shows the explosions.
Yeah.
There's the quietness of it, the way it just wipes. Just as if that's exactly how it would happen, right? Everything's just going and then it's just silence.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It just made my like stomach churn a little.
Yeah. Kubrick's fucking good at that, man. Like, I know he's like one of the big like canonical directors, like one of 5 people will throw out as like greatest director of all time or whatever. And so it's kind of gauche to like be a Kubrick stan or whatever because he's just like so normie at this point. Like,
gauche, though.
God, he's so fucking good. Like every time I watch a Kubrick movie, I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is so good. Like this man literally did not need to go as hard as he did. So I understand. Like I genuinely see why he is held up as one of the best.
This man didn't need to go as hard as he did. The Stanley Kubrick story.
Yeah.
Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and at Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where you can see all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematary if you'd like to support the podcast. Thank you so much to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Christina Daughtry, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Susanna of the Mounties, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up our Patreon pick series with what year did the Starship Troopers come out?
2001 or something. 2002.
1997. 1997 Starship.
Geez, shows off.
Am I on that episode?
No, are you?
I don't know. If I'm not on that episode, I would like to briefly state that Denise Richards is really hot in that movie.
Oh my God, Andrew.
That's all.
That's a pretty bold take, Andrew, I gotta say.
How many times has he said this? How many times has Andrew found a way to work that into conversation?
Andrew has like horseshoed his way back around to like 90s jock culture.
But it's feminist.
I mean, it's just true. I'm not trying to make any sort of political statement. Denise Richards is really hot in Starship
I
Troopers.
think
That
we
is
all
all.
agree. Sheesh.
Well, is she hot or is she not hot? Find out next week on Cinematary.
No.
Spoilers.
We'll see you then.
Stay cool.
All right, guys. I'm gonna hop off.